Hi, my name is Analisa Freitas, and I'm a Peruvian adoptee. I'm 24 years old. I live currently in Modesto, California, which is also the place that I grew up. I was born in Lima, Peru, and I was adopted about when I was about 11 days old. And then I came to the country with my mom, my single mom that adopted me, when I was about 2 months. So that's when everything was finalized, and I became over here to California to live in Modesto with her and spent most of my life here. I moved to New York briefly. I moved back to Peru briefly, and now living here. And I work for a couple different nonprofits, and I do a lot of different types of volunteer work. And I am here with my great friend Milagros. She'll introduce herself in a minute. And I actually met Milagros through our organization that myself and my friend Lydia Strawn, who's also a Peruvian adoptee, currently organized, called Nuestra, Herencia, Peruvian Adoptees. And we work to connect Peruvian adoptees and their families and their friends and their birth family members and anyone else connected to them. Through the internet, we have a web-based community, and that is how I met Milagros.
Hi, my name is Milagros Forrester. I'm a Peruvian adoptee as well. I was born in Arequipa, Peru, and I came to live in London with my parents and four brothers and three sisters when I was 14 months old. I'm currently working as early years professional in a school in London, and at the moment I love connecting with fellow adoptees from all around the world. I have four brothers and three sisters, and two of my siblings are also adopted from Arequipa. So we're 30% Peruvian in my family. Um, I reunited with my birth family in 2011, 2012. Um, I, I come from a large family in Peru. I've got many siblings. I don't know them all. I only know a few of them. But hopefully one day I'll be able to meet as many as I can. I met Analisa through Nuestra Herencia, and it's been a really great opportunity to meet her because she's introduced me to lots of Peruvians in America and also I've been able to engage with other Peruvians from around the world. So for me, it's been such a positive experience already.
So, Milagros and I are here today to talk about what we have in common. As we both mentioned, we're both Peruvian adoptees, and it's a topic that is really, really interesting to both of us. We've actually done a lot of our own personal work separately and together regarding birth country travel, birth family reunion, and search, and as well as connecting with other Peruvian adult adoptees around the globe. We put together 10 topics that touch those three interests that we both have. They're actually pretty deep topics. We have a lot to discuss, and we're hoping to share our personal stories with you all, as well as our personal experiences. We hope this is also the beginning of a dialogue that you can feel you can relate, learn something, comment back to us, ask us questions about our experiences, and we'd love to hear about your experiences as well. So we're going to be addressing about 10 topics that relate to these three issues. We'll address them in 10 separate videos, and this is our first one.
And one of my main aims in deciding to do this video was being able to connect with other adoptees from all around the world. I think one of the major factors of my adoption was that I never really met a Peruvian adoptee until 2010. Now I come from a really multicultural city, and it's been really kind of like a big detective hunt just to find a single Peruvian adoptee. When I was able to locate one, I realised that that she herself also felt in the same way. Intercountry adoption isn't really as popular, so to speak, as other European countries, and therefore I realised that I had to connect with other adoptees from abroad, and especially other Peruvian adoptees. So I'm just hoping that this video will enable a dialogue between other adoptees, which is really important.
So as we mentioned, birth country travel was a huge piece of our adoption stories, our adoption experience, and we're going to talk a little bit about that right now. Milagros, when you went to go to your birth country for the first time, what was the reason that you went? What kind of made you go, or what piqued your interest about traveling back to Peru where you were born?
Well, I think the first time I was interested in visiting my country must have been around the age of 6 or 5. I mean, I've always wanted to go back to Peru. I think a lot of it was because my parents had a lot of history with Peru already. And so when they brought me up, they were they told me such wonderful stories about my country and about the heritage and about their own personal experiences of what it was like to live in Peru, as my mum did. She lived there for 2 years. And also my other experience in Peru, adopting children. And so I had a really, really strong sense of identity, or Peruvian identity, even though at the same time I'd never met a Peruvian adoptee or a Peruvian person in London. So it was wholly my family, my parents' influence in me developing such a strong identity with Peru. And so when I could go to Peru, when it was financially and time-wise, when I was in a position to, I just went straight away. I didn't even think about all the issues that are involved with adoption, because I didn't grow up with knowing about the adoption issues. I just grew up knowing that I was adopted and that I was from Peru. And so all these issues about a sense of identity in the birth country, all these issues about what it would feel like, no one had actually explored those issues with me. And so I literally left when I was 19 on a flight, KLM flight, by myself from London via Amsterdam to Lima, and I arrived. It was the most amazing journey because I'd initially thought I'd go for a year. Because in my mind I thought, oh, I'm going to love it, I'm going to do so many things. And it's only after a month that I realised the implications of what a year meant in the birth country. Because I was just thinking about work-wise, I didn't even think about adoption issues.
Right.
Because no one had actually explained to me. Well, there was no one to explain to me, you know.
And when you say adoption issues, can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Well, what it actually feels like to see a person who is Peruvian, you'll see your image in other people. So my height, my hair, my eyes, because I'd never seen a person in London who had Andean features. And what it feels like is a total sense of identity. And then also just the language wise, I didn't know Spanish, and I think the other issues in sense of place, of my place in Peru. What is my place in Peru? It didn't really have a place in Peru because although I had Peruvian nationality, I actually entered in Peru as a Peruvian citizen. I couldn't speak the language. I didn't understand what was going around me. I didn't understand, obviously, the customs and the culture so much. I'd understood it from my parents' point of view, their experiences, but as a native, ethnically Peruvian origin of Peru, I had no idea what I was going to get into. I mean, what it would feel like.
And that was the first time.
And this was the first time, yeah.
And you were by yourself the first time.
I by myself the first
time. That's so incredible to me.
Well, I didn't, as I said, I just thought, well, what an experience to go to Peru. I just thought it in that way. I didn't think about the difficulties. I didn't, because I was just kind of like positive approach.
Yeah.
All I had was my Peruvian passport and my luggage, and I was off. I was going to stay there for a year. How long did I last? I lasted 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. But I learned many things, but I knew that I couldn't stay there for a year because work-wise, it wasn't going to work out.
Right.
So I would just support myself because I couldn't get a job because of the language. I didn't have a degree at that stage. So all these things that you think, well, you can get a job in London as a retail salesperson, but you can't really do that in Peru. You don't speak the language, you don't know people. So I didn't really think about that aspect.
Right.
So yeah.
So the first time was pretty shocking. It was maybe a little bit of a wake-up.
Yeah, it was a wake-up call to, I think it was a wake-up call in many respects, a wake-up call to who I was, where I came from, basically, my origin, my birth country, and although I didn't meet a single person that was related to me at that stage, I had a real sense of identity just without having any blood relatives in front of me.
Yeah.
I think that's the most kind of like wow factor about it all. But I had come from the city, from London, and I've seen so many people from all around the world, Asians, Africans, Europeans, but I'd never seen an Indian face.
Right.
And I think I was so used to that. I was so accepting to be that. Like, well, why would I? I went to schools, but I would have never met them anyhow, even if there could have been. I just predominantly went to some, I would say, predominantly white schools or just predominantly other mixes. But anyhow, so it was just an amazing time to visit Peru.
Yeah, that's very
So,
different to the first time that I went.
how was it for you?
The first time that I went back. I was 12 years old, and I went with my mom, my mom's friend, my biological older birth brother, his two siblings that were birth children to his adoptive parents. So I guess his adoptive two brothers,
Mm,
and then his two adoptive parents, his mom and his dad. And so it was kind of a big group of all of us that went. All of our adoptive family are white besides us. So when we went, I mean, people are automatically looking at us anyhow. I think if maybe we had traveled alone the first time, we would have blended in more. My brother was 16 years old at the time, and like I said, I was 12. I think his brother was also my age, about 12 years old, and then his older brother was probably like maybe 20 or so. And it was actually something that I had known was going to happen since probably like maybe a year and a half or so. That my mom, she kind of let me know that they were planning this trip, and I was really, really, really excited because I had been really wanting to go. And I wanted to go meet my birth mother, and I wanted to go meet my younger birth sibling that I knew I had another younger biological brother living there. And I just wanted to see the country, and I had heard so much about it from her and from just different things that she had given me and things she had talked to me about as a younger kid that I just felt really excited about it. When I left my house, I remember we were driving away from my house to go to the airport. I started crying because I was so sad that I was leaving my home, and I was like, oh my gosh, 2 weeks. Like, we're going to be gone for 2 weeks. It's so long. Being 12 and just being young, and I just kind of got scared. And I was not scared at all before that. Kind of like you, I was like, yeah, like I'm going to go and it's going to be great and super fun. And as soon as I left, it kind of hit me that I was like going somewhere that I really didn't know anything about. I had heard about it, I had read about it, I'd seen pictures, but I really didn't know anything about it. And it just hit me right in that moment that I was going somewhere really foreign. Although, technically it's supposed to not be foreign to you. It's who you are, it's where you're born, it's your blood, but it's not at the same time. And so we went for about 2 weeks, and we did a lot of just like sightseeing, and went to like Cusco, we went to Machu Picchu, we went to Lima. I did a bunch of sightseeing around there, and I actually did get to meet my birth mother for the first time there. My first time going to Peru, and my first time meeting my birth mother in person. She actually came to the hostel that we were staying at, and I think it was just before Christmas. And so that was a really, really crazy experience as well. um, I don't think I could have prepared for that in any way. And again, it was one of those experiences where I had really, really wanted to do it for a long time. And as soon as the moment arrived, I was like, oh, this is not a good idea. Like, I should not be doing this. I do not want to meet her. I don't want her to come. And my mom was like, she's coming. So you have to figure it out. And I actually like hid in my room for a little while before she got there, and like pretended to sleep. And eventually my mom had to come and get me and was like, she's here, you need to come out. So, and after I met her, I mean, things were fine. But um it was a big trip for me in that way. And my older brother and I were also supposed to meet our younger brother that trip, but we were told at the time that he just wasn't able to make the trip. He hadn't been away from where he was living, which at the time he was living in Ancash department, which is way up north. It's like 10 hours away from the city or more. And so we didn't end up getting to see him, which we were disappointed about. I think we were maybe more excited to meet him than our birth mother. Um, and we spent some time with her, and like I just spent some time with my brother and his family. And I just remember most of the things that I remember from that trip were like going to Machu Picchu and eating the food and the different things, like seeing ice cream. The guys that ride ice cream bikes, there's these things that they like honk and stuff, and they scream hello, and which is like ice cream in Spanish. And like I remember those little things, and like seeing the beach, and like going into the mountains. And we had this like our tour bus driver when we were up in the mountains in Cusco. He he would disappear after every site that we would go see, and eventually by the end of the day they realized that he was sneaking off to the bar after every single stop, and then was getting back in the bus and driving us around these like, you know, tiny dirt roads in the mountains. And so that was a really funny experience that I will never forget. So all those little things, and I remember people talking to me in Spanish, and I mean, by the time that I left, I was like crying again because I didn't want to leave, and I was so happy to be there. And I think I had a similar experience to you, where it was like the first time people took me on as like a part of their group. You know, like they saw me and they saw me as Peruvian, even though I didn't speak the language. And I don't know, just sometimes I kind of felt like again, like more accepted, I think. Even though I grew up in an area in Modesto, I mean, there's a lot of Latino people here. I never really felt as accepted. And not like to say I was like rejected, but it just, I mean, I'm not a Mexican person. I'm not Mexican American. You know, I'm almost not really Peruvian American, I guess, in the sense of like I knew a lot about my birth country or my roots or culture. I knew a lot about it in the theory, but it was different. It was definitely different being there. And how many times have you gone after that first time? When you said you were 19?
Yeah, so I mean, I first went back when I was 19. I mean, I think when I look back at my journey, when I think about when I look and reflect about my first journey, I think there were so many people involved in that journey, even though they didn't come with me. They were in London, and I think, you know, I've just been really fortunate to have those people, and because I think in order to have, I sometimes think, and I went back to my country quite young, I suppose, because I didn't know my birth family like you did, and I mean, there's many of us. It's not like we should all go back to Peru together. I mean, I was never gonna take. Well, it's never gonna work out, is it? It's not gonna happen. So I knew that I was always gonna go back by myself, and maybe with my brother.
Hmm.
I always think, well, there were so many people that really helped me to get there, in a sense, like, you know, like got me there. And I think, you know, when I first started, I worked in an institute, a hospitality institute for 2 months, and I stayed in an orphanage for a month after that. So I think I was totally accepted in wherever I wanted to go to, and then nothing was really planned. I mean, everything was sort of when I met a person, they said, "Oh, why don't you come here?"
Hmm.
So in that way, like, yes, I was very accepted. And from then, since that really positive trip, I've been back 8 times, more or less. Yeah, 8 times. And I've just I've gone back for several reasons. One, because I wanted to know more about where I came from. I wanted to visit places. I wanted to get a strong appreciation of where I came from. Because I think for the majority of my time, my experiences were based on what my parents had told me. So
Hmm.
for
Right.
Peru, beautiful country because X, Y, and Z. Well,
Right.
I know it is anyhow, but at least I can say now, well, do you know what? This is my opinion of Peru. This is my opinion of these are my experiences. So I kind of took control of my adoption process because when you're growing up, obviously your parents are the ones who adopted you. Your parents are the ones who have those memories of your birth country and your adoption.
Right.
And actually, I'm really happy that my parents are very, very literate and very like discussing all the time about Peru. So I got that from them. But now I kind of, as an adult at 18, I wanted to take it on myself and I wanted to develop it. And I think this is the whole process of developing oneself in adoption because I'm the kind of person that I would just be happy to say, you know what, I've just been through. Yeah, but I want to really explore the issues. I want to explore the adoption journey. It's
Right.
not just going back and saying, oh, I've gone to Cusco, I've gone here, I've gone there. You can tick off as many places as you want to.
Yeah.
But as you grow up, you kind of get to different stages of your life and then you see your adoption a different way. And I wanted to grow up with my adoption as I grew up in London. I didn't
Yeah.
want to put my adoption journey on hold just for the sake of living in London. So I kind of worked very closely to combine my adoption journey with my life. And this is the objective. This is why I've gone back so many times because you can't just. And I've gone back so many times because I've had to make sense. And I think the biggest, speaking to you and speaking to other adoptees and just, my gosh, my experiences of being adopted in London, I can say has been totally, I don't know if it's because I'm from London that makes it so different. I'm so different. was it because my parents are not English? So, because most of you adopted from, your parents are from the places you were adopted from. And so I guess with having parents who aren't English and coming from a country that doesn't really adopt, well, does adopt, but doesn't really adopt from Peru. So it's kind of like having to deal with so many things. And I felt, you know what, the only thing I know for sure is that I'm from Peru.
Right.
So let's find where I'm from first and develop myself with the knowledge that I'm going to develop in my identity as I grow up. And so I think this is the way. And another thing is I didn't have any information about my biological family. So I had nothing, literally nothing. And I think when you've got no information whatsoever, you're actually having to get something. And I think if I had a name or photo or something, I might have not been so intense about it all. But because I had nothing to work with, I kind of just went overboard with trying to understand my Peruvian identity.
Yeah.
And so I visited 8 times. I've been all over Peru. I've worked on projects. I've just done many different experiences. And, you know, ironically, after all of these experiences, it was only in my it was only in my 7th visit that actually find my family.
Wow.
And I know that people find their family on the 1st or 2nd visit.
Yeah, everyone has like a different experience with that, you know?
Yeah, so I think so I just realised that I feel like I did so many years and now I've only found my family and now that's a whole different type of process.
Right.
It's the whole type of, it's more
It's
intense.
opening up some other issues.
It's more horizons and it's like, it's not a journey that I can say is totally complete.
Right.
It's just begun in that respect.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I
Even though
think I agree.
yeah,
I think I agree.
even though 7th visit, just kind of just feeling comfortable in Peru. Or not feeling, I've always felt comfortable, but understanding why I feel comfortable.
Yeah, definitely.
Looking, why do I feel so comfortable in Peru? What is it? Why is it that when I walk the streets, I feel fine? And not that I don't feel fine walking the streets in London,
Yeah.
but there's a whole sense of intensity that surrounds it all. When I come to immigration, it's like, wow, it's Peruvian, it's Peruvian. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of still very unique to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Very unique, this kind of idea where people are looking. I'm looking at them, looking at me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're looking at me, but I'm looking at them thinking, wow, they look like me. Even today, even I don't know why. And I'm like, laughing, wow, you look really Peruvian, and you look like you can come from the same area as I can come from, or something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the first time I went compared to the other times I've gone, because I went once when I was 12, I went back when I was 18 to live for 1 year. I turned 19 in the country. The third time I went was to visit my family, and then I just went again recently again to visit my family and my friends there. So it's kind of interesting because the first time I felt like was really like more of like a touristy vacation, even though I had some birth family reunion. The focus was mostly just to see the country, just to experience it. And that's what I really felt it was about. Like, it really felt like a vacation, especially after I had the second time going and the experience of living there for 1 year. I was there for like a full year. I went home for maybe a month at most for Christmas. And I was a completely different animal. It wasn't just all like light and fluffy. Like, honestly, it was the first time I really felt like it was very light and fluffy. And then the second time I went, I had to go to school. I had to learn the language. I had to figure out transportation. I had to live a life, there, and with not really having that much language capability, and I was forced to learn it once I was there, which is one of the reasons I went back, was to expand my Spanish. And I felt like I had reached a certain point studying it in school here, and I'm like, I'm just plateauing, I'm not getting any better, and I'm not feeling any more fluent. So I had to go back, and I also had talked a lot about going back, and just never done it. And finally I'm like, you know what, like, enough is enough, I'm going back. And yeah, it was a challenge. The first month it was so hard, and I think I went through a lot of, like you kind of said, like trying to understand why you feel differently or why you feel comfortable in certain spaces and not in others. And I went through a lot of that, like, am I American, am I Peruvian American, and am I just an adoptee, like what am I feeling? And I kind of just rejected some things, and I just went through this whole process, and I grew up a lot there. I learned a lot about the world, and the next two visits that I went, the second to last one, again, it was more to visit family and visit friends, and the last time I went as well was there. I was there to do some business as well, some like birth family searching and like getting documents and things like that. So that was like also a different animal, working with like Peruvian government and things like that. Um, each time has been different. I think each time has been extremely different. But I would definitely agree with you that now that when I go back, it's very comfortable. It's very familiar. I have the language skills, and I know what to expect. I can more or less remember the bus routes and things like that. So it feels like I'm just visiting home again.
Although we've been back many times and we said, oh, we feel comfortable, there is still, I don't know if it will ever lessen, but I still feel like I'm still analysing so many things about my own identity. I don't know what like, I can't actually put my finger on exactly why it is.
Yeah.
I still like feel as though there's still so much there.
Mhm.
There's still so much there. I mean, I
There's
guess
still so much there.
what we put into it, how much we put into it. So I guess we continue kind of like looking, we're always going to find something, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
And you'll
but
be
I
you'll be
do,
going back again, right? Pretty soon?
yeah, I'm going to go back. Really,
In 1 week. Oh my goodness.
actually, part 10, part 9.
So it'll be the 10th time?
I don't, uh, 9th or 10th. I really have forgotten how many times I've been back, but I think it's 9th or 10th.
See, that's kind of incredible because, like, I mean, I'm only on my fourth time going, and I know I'm gonna keep going back. Like, I'll try to keep going back every year. I missed a couple years, here and there,
Mm-hmm.
but because I don't always have the funds to buy flights, but I really am making it a point to go back every year. And now, like I said, I have family and friends, so it's like people are telling me to come back for their graduation, things like that, birthdays and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, no, it's kind of interesting to me that I've only been back 4 times, and I feel like it's barely beginning, and things have been different every single trip. And you're on your 10th time, and you still feel like
Yeah.
things
And
are
I'm still
beginning
going.
and things are still opening up.
Yeah. I mean, but this is what I don't. This is sort of like, it's sort of like for some reason, my kind of adoption journey has been up and down, up and down. You think you've got one thing, and then you realise actually there's more. So you think you've got one thing, and then you
Yeah,
actually there's one more thing you need to do.
yeah.
So what can you do? Either you can ignore it, which I don't really do,
No,
get on that plane and
I
go.
don't think that's our personalities.
Ignore it. I can't just sit at home and think, you know what? I don't think I've ever been scared in a sense.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm a little bit nervous now, but I mean, I'll still get on that plane and I'll still book that in like the space of like whatever space of time it was, like a month, kind
yeah.
of like empty. So I don't know. I just think it's such an enriching journey. That's the thing. I think if
It's
I
almost
hadn't done
addicting in
it,
a way, isn't it?
it's addicting. You can't get enough of it.
It's
I
like,
mean,
even though sometimes it's like kind of bad for you, you're like, nope, nope, gotta go back.
I know when I first went back, everyone was around me like, why are you still going back to Peru? And at that stage, I had no family. I had really nothing. And I kept going back. And I
Yeah.
was like, no, but you know, one day I'm going to find them. One day I'm going to find them. And then all of this will make sense.
Mm.
And to be honest, all of it has made sense.
Because now you
And
found them.
because now I found them. And now I know that if I hadn't gone on those previous journeys, can you imagine me just turning up to Peru? What would and I think the younger you are, the more adaptable you are to begin with.
Right.
Yeah, and also you've got good coping mechanisms because you've been able to deal with the culture and the issues that are involved in Peru. And we
Right.
both know that we don't actually come from a rich family in a sense in Peru.
Yeah.
Like they've got issues in our families, and so
Oh,
we have
yeah.
to be able to deal with those. And and I can say that 18, I wouldn't have been able to deal with them in a sense. I wouldn't know what to say to them. I wouldn't know what to do with them. So I think in so many ways, even though I would have loved to have kind of had that 18, I don't think I would have been ready for it.
Yeah.
And I think, that's the way it works. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, now I've got the coping mechanisms, I've got the flexibility, I've got, yeah, so it kind of works out for me. And so, yeah.
I can relate to that feeling like even though you feel scared to do it, you do it anyways. Because I know when I went to there to live there for a year, it was a huge decision. It was a really huge decision. I made it a part of my academic years. So all of my credits, I went to university in Peru, and everything counted toward my degree in the United States. I went to Sarah Lawrence College. And with a trip like that, you have to plan well in advance, well in advance. So I did. I did everything, and I got my visa and passport and everything. Set up my school, got pictures, got documents, the necessary documents, and all those things. Talked to my school, talked to my, international program and everything. And it was a lot. It was a lot. And then once it was all done, I was like, I had a chance to like reflect and be like, how am I feeling about this, And one week I would feel super excited and just so ready to go and ready for an adventure. And like, at the time I wasn't really feeling like, I wasn't sure if I really wanted to go through school. And so traveling was also another way to kind of be like, well, I'm still going to study and like, I'll do what my mom wants me to do, which is finish my degree. But at the same time, I'll be able to have some adventure. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the next week I'd be like, what am I thinking? Like, why would I leave my country and like go somewhere I don't even know what it looks like or like, who's gonna be there? I don't have any contact with my birth family anymore because I lost contact with my birth mother. I'm like, what was that? What am I doing? Like this is ridiculous. And then the next week I go back to feeling like excited again, and it was just a huge roller coaster, until I got there.
But ultimately, there was a push, pull inside of you, wasn't there? That
Ultimately, yeah. I mean, the
I want to
end
go to
goal was to
school.
go and yeah, search for
Yeah.
my family, learn Spanish, like learn more about my roots and where I came from. Like that was really it. I wanted to know my story because I didn't feel like I had clarity on all my story, even though I did have information on my adoption and on my birth mother. And my adopted mom actually met her when she adopted me, but I still felt like there were so many questions. There were so many questions for me, and I just had to go. I just had to figure out how to answer them some way.
Yeah, I definitely felt a pull in my adoption without any information. I just felt like that was the only way to be connected to my
Yeah,
family. I had no physical connection that I could make. So the next step would be to have a connection with my country.
right.
And it's hard to kind of like create that all those connections. So then have a physical connection, I have to create somehow that in Peru. You
Yeah,
can't really copy that.
yeah,
You have to do your best about connecting to a country. And I think this is why I went back